The room falls silent as Muhammad Ali steps through the door of the Houston Draft Board office. Sweat beads on his forehead, not from nerves, but from the sweltering Texas heat outside. The year is 1967, and the air is thick with tension. 5 white officials sit behind a long wooden table, their faces a careful blend of authority and disdain. They've been waiting for this moment to put the loudmouth boxer in his place. "Mr. Clay," the head official says deliberately, using Ali's birth name, knowing full well he had changed it when he converted to Islam. "We've reviewed your case and found no reason to grant you conscientious objector status." Ali stands tall, his 6'3" frame casting a long shadow across the room. His eyes meet those of each official, one by one. The clock on the wall ticks loudly in the silence. "The name is Muhammad Ali," he says, his voice steady yet powerful. "I don't have to be what you want me to be." The lead official, a gray-haired man named Richard Bennett, leans forward, a slight smirk crossing his face. "You've passed all the mental tests. You're fit to serve. Your country needs you, and you will serve." A reporter from the Houston Chronicle shifts uncomfortably in his seat. He can feel something brewing, a moment that will transcend this room and this day. Ali's hands remain steady at his sides, though inside his mind races. Everything he's fought for, his title, his dignity, his beliefs, all hang in the balance. These men think they have him cornered, but Ali has never backed down from a fight, in or out of the ring. "I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong," Ali says, his words cutting through the silence like a perfectly timed jab. "No Viet Cong ever called me nigger." The officials' faces contort with shock. A soft gasp escapes from the small audience of reporters. Bennett's pen drops from his hand, clattering on the wooden table. In that moment, Ali has thrown a verbal punch that will echo through history. Just outside the window, a crowd has gathered. Word travels fast, and the people of Houston, both black and white, want to witness what's happening. Among them stands John Simmons, a 23-year-old dock worker who skipped his shift to be here. Unlike the wealthy officials inside, John understands what it means to be forced into choices you never asked for. "You understand what this means, Mr. Clay?" Bennett emphasizes the name again, trying to reassert control. "You will be stripped of your title. You face 5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine." Ali doesn't flinch. "I'm ready to go to jail. I've been in jail for 400 years. I could be there for 4 or 5 more, but I ain't going 10,000 miles to help murder and kill other poor people." Bennett slams his fist on the table. "This isn't about race, Clay. This is about duty to your country." Ali's eyes flash with an intensity that makes Bennett sit back in his chair. "My conscience won't let me go shoot my brother, or some darker people, some poor hungry people in the mud, for big powerful America," he says. "They never called me nigger. They never lynched me. They didn't put no dogs on me." The reporters' pens scratch frantically across their notepads. They know they're witnessing something unprecedented. A black athlete standing before white authority, refusing to back down, articulating a position that captures the moral complexity of the moment in a way no one else has. John Simmons presses closer to the window, his heart pounding. Someone whispers the exchange to those who can't hear, and Ali's words spread through the crowd like wildfire. In that moment, something shifts in the collective consciousness. Inside, Bennett confers with the other officials, their hushed voices urgent. Ali stands unwavering, his expression calm despite the storm he knows is coming. What these men don't understand is that they've given him a platform bigger than any boxing ring. "You leave us no choice but to proceed with criminal charges," Bennett finally says, his voice strained with barely contained anger. Ali nods once. "I expected nothing less." As he turns to leave, the reporters surge forward shouting questions. Ali pauses at the door, looks back at the officials, and delivers one final line that will be repeated in living rooms and barbershops across America by nightfall. "I'd rather face jail than face the knowledge that I helped murder innocent people. I won't be used to promote your war." The crowd outside erupts in a mixture of cheers and angry shouts as Ali emerges into the sunlight. John Simmons finds himself moved to tears, though he can't fully articulate why. Something profound has just happened. Words have been spoken that can never be taken back, and though no one knows it yet, a 24-year-old reporter named Xavier Collins is among those present, a man whose detailed account of this day will launch his career and eventually inspire a character in the hit series Paradise decades later. The consequences come swiftly, like a right hook nobody saw coming. Within hours, the New York State Athletic Commission suspends Ali's boxing license and strips him of his heavyweight title. The other boxing commissions follow suit. By nightfall, Muhammad Ali, the greatest boxer in the world, can no longer legally step into a ring in the United States. Ali sits in his hotel room at the Rice Hotel in downtown Houston, surrounded by a small circle of supporters. Among them is his spiritual advisor, who places a hand on Ali's shoulder. "Brother, are you sure about this path? The price will be heavy." Outside, television crews have set up camp. The evening news is leading with the story, Howard Cosell's distinctive voice narrating Ali's fall from grace with a hint of sympathy that his producers will later question. Ali moves to the window, pulls back the curtain slightly, and looks down at the growing media circus. "The real test of a man is not when he's on top," he says quietly. "The real test comes when you get knocked down." His manager, Herbert Muhammad, hangs up the phone, his face grim. That was the last sponsor. They're all pulling out. Ali nods, having expected this too. His financial security, so recently achieved after years of fighting his way up from poverty in Louisville, is now crumbling before his eyes. The room feels smaller suddenly, the walls closing in. For a brief moment, doubt flickers across his face, a rare glimpse of vulnerability from a man known for his unwavering confidence. John Simmons has made his way to a payphone outside a diner 3 blocks away. His hands shake as he drops a dime and dials his mother's number in 5th Ward, Houston's historically black neighborhood. "Mama, I saw him. I saw Ali stand up to them," he says, his voice cracking with emotion. "They tried to break him down, but he stood firm." His mother's voice comes through, tinged with worry. "John, you be careful now. White folks won't take kindly to this." "I know, Mama, but something's different this time. You should have seen him. He wasn't afraid." Meanwhile, in the offices of the Houston Chronicle, young reporter Xavier Collins is arguing with his editor, a 50-something white man named Frank Tillman. "We can't print these quotes verbatim, Collins. They're too inflammatory," Tillman says, cigarette dangling from his lips. Xavier stands his ground, a rare posture for a black journalist in 1967. "Sir, with all due respect, these are his exact words. This is news. This is history." "History, my ass," Tillman snorts. "It's a colored boxer getting too big for his britches. We'll tone it down." Xavier feels his future hanging in the balance, but something about what he witnessed today compels him to push back. "I can't put my name on a watered-down version, sir. Ali spoke truth today. Raw truth." Back at the hotel, the phone rings. It's Howard Cosell wanting an exclusive. Ali takes the call, aware that Cosell has been one of the few voices in sports media willing to call him by his chosen name. "They think they've silenced me by taking my title," Ali tells Cosell, his voice gaining strength as he speaks. "But they've just given me a bigger platform. Now I can reach people who never cared about boxing." As night falls, protests begin to form in cities across America. In Harlem, hundreds gather with hastily made signs supporting Ali. In Chicago's South Side, a young Jesse Jackson leads a prayer vigil. In Oakland, the nascent Black Panther Party uses Ali's stance to further galvanize their movement. John Simmons doesn't go home. Instead, he finds himself drawn to a gathering at a local church in 5th Ward, where people have come together spontaneously to discuss what happened. The small church is packed beyond capacity, with people spilling out onto the steps. Inside, an older man stands up. "My grandson is in Vietnam right now," he says, his voice trembling. "And today, for the first time, I'm questioning why we sent him there." The room buzzes with conversation, with revelation. Something is shifting in the consciousness of the community. A realization that resistance is possible, that one man's stand can ignite a spark. At the Chronicle, Xavier Collins finally reaches a compromise with his editor. The quotes will run, but buried in the middle of the article. It's not perfect, but Ali's words will be there, on the record, unaltered. As Xavier walks home that night, the weight of the day heavy on his shoulders, he passes a barbershop still open late. Through the window, he sees a group of men huddled around a radio, listening intently to a news report about Ali. Their faces reflect a complex mixture of pride, concern, and something else. Hope, perhaps. Xavier doesn't know it yet, but the article he files tonight will be clipped and saved in thousands of homes. It will be read aloud in barbershops and church basements. Years later, It will be studied in journalism classes as an example of reporting that captured a pivotal moment in American history. And Ali, lying awake in his hotel room as midnight approaches, stares at the ceiling, mentally preparing for the battles to come. He knows that tomorrow will bring more questions, more criticism, more pressure to recant. But he also knows something the officials who tried to humiliate him don't yet understand, that some words once spoken cannot be unheard. They enter the bloodstream of society, changing it forever. 3 years pass like a slow count after a knockdown. Muhammad Ali, banned from boxing during what should have been the prime years of his career, transforms from a controversial sports figure into something more profound, a symbol of principled resistance. It's a crisp autumn day in 1970 when Ali steps onto the campus of Howard University. The air buzzes with anticipation as thousands of students pack the yard to hear him speak. Among them stands Marcus Washington, a sophomore who has spent the past year organizing campus protests against the war. "I never thought I'd see the day," Marcus whispers to his girlfriend Lisa, the champ here at Howard. When Ali appears on the makeshift stage, the crowd erupts. Their cheers wash over him like a wave, and for a moment, he simply stands there, absorbing their energy, their love. This is a different kind of victory than anything he's felt in the ring. "They thought they could silence me," Ali begins, his voice carrying across the hushed crowd without need of a microphone. "They thought taking my title would break me, but they forgot something important. I am the greatest, and the greatest stands for something greater than himself." The crowd roars its approval, and Ali feels a surge of something powerful. He may have lost millions in earnings, but he has gained something more valuable, a platform to speak truth that resonates far beyond the boxing world. Meanwhile, in a federal courthouse in Houston, the government's case against Ali for draft evasion continues its slow journey through appeals. His legal team, led by Chauncey Eskridge, has been fighting tirelessly, taking the case all the way to the Supreme Court. In New York, John Simmons, who left Houston after being fired from his job for attending Ali's hearing, now works for a community organization in Harlem. On his desk sits a framed newspaper clipping of Xavier Collins' article about that fateful day. John has become an organizer inspired by Ali's stand to work for change in his community. Xavier Collins himself has risen through the ranks to become a respected journalist at the Washington Post, his coverage of civil rights issues earning him recognition and the occasional threat. He keeps a photo on his desk, a shot he took himself of Ali leaving the draft board that day, head held high despite the storm around him. Back at Howard, Ali continues, his words weaving a spell over the entranced students. "They call me un-American for refusing to go to Vietnam, but I ask you, what's more American than standing up for what you believe? What's more American than questioning authority when authority is wrong?" A young professor named Angela Davis stands at the edge of the crowd, nodding her approval. Next to her, Stokely Carmichael listens intently, recognizing in Ali a powerful ally in the struggle. "The same government that wants to send us to Vietnam to fight for freedom," Ali continues, his voice rising, "won't fight for our freedom right here at home. They want me to put on a uniform and go 10,000 miles to help murder and burn poor people simply to continue the domination of white slave masters over the darker people of the earth." The crowd is with him now, calling back, turning his speech into a dialogue. This is not just a man speaking. This is a communion between a leader and his people. Across town in the White House, President Nixon meets with his advisors. A television in the corner of the Oval Office plays footage of Ali's speech at Howard. "Turn that damn thing off," Nixon snaps. "How much longer before the Supreme Court rules on his case?" His chief of staff shrugs. "Could be months, sir. The case is complicated, and public opinion is shifting." Nixon scowls. "Public opinion? Since when do criminals get to shape public opinion?" But even as he speaks, the president knows that something has changed. The war is becoming increasingly unpopular, and Ali has become its most eloquent critic, making arguments that resonate with Americans who had previously supported the conflict. Back at Howard, Ali wraps up his speech to thunderous applause. As he's escorted off stage, a young man breaks through security and reaches out to touch Ali's hand. "You saved my life, champ," he says, tears streaming down his face. "I was going to go. I was scared, but I was going to go. Then I heard what you said, and I found the courage to say no too." Ali embraces the young man tightly. This is why he's endured the loss of his title, the financial hardship, the public scorn. for moments like this when he knows his stand has made a difference in someone's life. Later that evening, in a small gathering at the home of poet Nikki Giovanni, Ali sits surrounded by intellectuals, artists, and activists. The conversation flows freely, touching on politics, philosophy, and the future of the movement. "They tried to make an example of you," says James Baldwin, sipping his drink thoughtfully. "But they didn't understand that you would become an example of an entirely different kind." Ali nods. "When I refused to go, it wasn't just about me. It was about all of us. About saying no to a system that values some lives more than others." Across the room, a television plays the evening news. A report comes on about the latest casualties in Vietnam, the numbers climbing higher each week. The room falls silent as the images flicker across the screen. "Every one of those boys," Ali says quietly, "is someone's son, someone's brother." The gathering continues late into the night, a kind of war council of the mind, strategizing not just about Ali's legal battles, but about the larger struggle for justice and equality. In this room, among these minds, Ali feels a sense of purpose that transcends even his dreams of reclaiming his boxing title. As dawn approaches, Ali steps outside onto the porch for a moment alone. The sky is just beginning to lighten, promising a new day. He thinks about the journey that began that day in Houston, about the price he's paid and the road still ahead. A police car drives slowly past the house, the officers inside eyeing the gathering suspiciously. Ali watches them pass, aware that his every move is still being monitored, his influence feared by those in power. But as the sun begins to rise, casting long shadows across the street, Ali feels a quiet certainty. Whatever happens with his case, whatever the Supreme Court decides, he has already won the most important fight, the fight to remain true to his conscience, to stand up for what he believes, even when standing alone. June 28, 1971. The Supreme Court of the United States. 9 justices in black robes sit in judgment of a black man who refused to be what others wanted him to be. The marble halls echo with footsteps as Ali, dressed in an impeccable suit, enters alongside his legal team. His expression is serious, but there's a light in his eyes, the light of a man who knows his truth. The court has reconvened to announce its decision in Clay v. United States. After years of legal battles, after Ali has sacrificed the prime of his career, after the world has debated and divided over his stance, the moment of judgment has arrived. Outside, thousands have gathered, a sea of humanity flowing down the steps of the Supreme Court and spilling onto the streets of Washington, D.C. Among them stands John Simmons, who has traveled from New York for this moment, taking vacation days he can't afford. Nearby, Xavier Collins prepares to cover what could be the most significant story of his career. Inside, Chief Justice Warren Burger begins to read the court's decision, his voice echoing in the chamber. Ali sits perfectly still, his hands folded in his lap as the legal language washes over him. And then the words that will change everything. The judgment is reversed. A unanimous decision, 8-0. The conviction overturned. Muhammad Ali is vindicated. For a moment, Ali remains still, processing what he's just heard. Then slowly, he rises to his feet. His attorney embraces him, tears in his eyes. Photographers' flashbulbs pop like distant lightning, capturing the moment for tomorrow's front pages. Outside, as news of the decision spreads through the crowd, a roar goes up that seems to shake the very foundations of the Capitol. John Simmons finds himself embracing strangers, crying openly. Xavier Collins, professional demeanor momentarily forgotten, pumps his fist in the air before remembering himself and returning to his notes. Ali emerges from the court into the sunshine, and the crowd's cheers reach a crescendo. He raises his fists in his trademark victory pose, and in that moment, it's as if all the accumulated tension of the past 4 years releases in one collective exhalation. Reporters surge forward, microphones thrust in Ali's face. "What are you going to do now?" someone shouts above the din. Ali smiles, that radiant, charismatic smile that had been absent for too long. "I'm going back to work," he says simply. The crowd laughs, then cheers again. They know what this means. The greatest is returning to the ring. Later that evening, in a hotel suite in downtown Washington, Ali holds an impromptu press conference. The room is packed with journalists, including Xavier Collins, who has managed to secure a spot in the front row. "I want to thank the Supreme Court for recognizing the truth of my position," Ali begins, his voice steady and clear. I want to thank my legal team for their tireless work. But most of all, I want to thank the people. All the people who stood with me, who understood that this fight was about more than one man refusing to step forward. It was about standing up for what's right, even when it costs you everything. A reporter calls out, "Do you regret the years you lost? The money? The title?" Ali pauses, considering the question. "I don't regret a single day," he says finally. Those years weren't lost, they were invested. Invested in something bigger than boxing, bigger than fame, bigger than money. They were invested in the truth. The room falls silent, reporters momentarily forgetting their questions as they absorb his words. In Harlem, people dance in the streets. In Louisville, Ali's mother sits by her radio, tears streaming down her face. In Vietnam, black soldiers pass around a smuggled newspaper with the headline, "Ali Vindicated." At the White House, President Nixon slams down his phone after receiving the news. This sets a dangerous precedent, he fumes to his aides. What he doesn't yet know is that his own actions will soon lead to a scandal that will end his presidency, while Ali's stand will be remembered as a moment of moral courage. Back in the hotel, as the press conference winds down, Xavier Collins raises his hand. When Ali acknowledges him, Xavier asks, "When you stood in that draft board office 4 years ago, did you ever imagine it would lead to this moment?" Ali looks at Xavier, recognizing him from that day in Houston. A smile spreads across his face. "Brother, I didn't know the path, but I knew the destination. Truth always wins in the end. It might take rounds, it might go the distance, but truth wins the fight." As the press conference ends, Ali makes his way through the crowd. He stops when he reaches Xavier, places a hand on his shoulder. "I remember you," he says. "You wrote the truth that day." Xavier, normally composed, feels his throat tighten with emotion. "I just reported what I saw, what I heard." "Sometimes," Ali says, "that's the bravest thing a man can do." Outside the hotel, John Simmons waits with hundreds of others, hoping for a glimpse of the champ. When Ali finally emerges, the crowd surges forward. Security holds them back, but Ali gestures for John to approach. "Champ, you won't remember me, but I was there that day in Houston," John says, his voice thick with emotion. "What you did, what you said, it changed my life." Ali embraces him. "We all fought this fight together, brother. All of us." As night falls over Washington, Ali stands on the balcony of his hotel room, looking out over the city. In the distance, the monuments glow white against the darkening sky, symbols of an America that has not always lived up to its promises, but that still holds the potential for justice. Tomorrow, he will begin preparing for his return to the ring. There will be training camps and matches, victories and defeats still to come. There will be the rumble in the jungle and the thriller in Manila. There will be moments of glory that cement his place in boxing history. But tonight, in this moment of vindication, Muhammad Ali understands that his greatest victory had nothing to do with boxing. It was won not with his fists, but with his principles. Not in a ring, but in a draft board office in Houston, where he stood before men who sought to humiliate him and spoke words that would echo through history. "I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong." Words that decades later, in an age of instant communication and viral moments, would have broken the internet. Words that instead broke barriers, challenged consciences, and helped change the course of American history. As he turns from the balcony and steps back into his room, Ali knows that the fight is not over. Not his personal fight, nor the larger fight for justice. But tonight he can rest knowing that he has stayed true to himself and his beliefs, that he has used his platform to stand for something greater than personal glory. And in living rooms and bars, in dorm rooms and barbershops across America, people are talking about what this victory means, not just for one man, but for all who dare to stand on principle against the tide of popular opinion. The conversation he started that day in Houston continues, rippling outward through time, touching lives like those of John Simmons and Xavier Collins, inspiring a new generation to question, to stand, to speak truth to power. This, Ali knows, is his true legacy. Not the boxing titles, but the moral stance. Not the fights won with his fists, but the fight won with his conscience. Not the man he was told to be, but the man he chose to become. Muhammad Ali, the greatest, in and out of the ring.